ESPN has named its X Factors for the 2024 football season for the top 25 schools in college football. Of course, I want to talk about Georgia's, who was not a super surprising selection, but I think it's interesting the direction that Mark Schlabach and the rest of this ESPN crew went. Looking through some of the other ones in the top 10, I think that they do a pretty good job, honestly, on this article that they released just last week, just a few days ago. Benjamin Yurcek is who they picked for the Georgia Bulldogs, that he is the X factor for Georgia this season. Transfer tight end from Stanford. This is year 5 of college football for him. 2020 didn't play, but he was there. 21 was actually his best season, and we're talking about 3 years ago when Georgia won the national championship. 2021 was his best year statistically, with 42 catches, 653 yards, 3 touchdowns. A little bit worse in 2022, and then had some soldier injury. Wow, soldier injury in 2023, and that tanked his stats, that tanked his performance last season. So Benjamin Yurcek, is his role going to be the Brock Bowers role? Well, no, because there's only one Brock Bowers, and Georgia has some other tight ends that are really talented. And they brought in a freshman that's really talented in Jaden Riddell. They had a Lawson Lucky. They have Oscar Delp, who is projected to be an NFL guy next year, potentially. The video game projects him to be pretty good with that 90 overall ranking. With Benjamin Yurcek, he brings experience and he brings really good pass catching. This is not a block tent. This is a vertical threat type of tight end. A guy they're going to design stuff for him. They're going to try to get the ball out to him. For Carson, I think I did a video not too long ago where I talked about what I thought the X factor was, and maybe it was too obvious, and I picked Trevor Etienne as my X factor for Georgia, because I think from an offensive standpoint, that's the biggest difference for the Dogs, is that they have a guy that is projected to be really, really good. DeAndre Swift-like. I want to talk about that in a deeper way. Now that we've had SEC Media Days in Dallas, we've done that. I want to talk about that in a deeper way, with quotes and a little bit more information. But this is about Benjamin Yurcek, who is going to definitely be out there on the field. They went out there and they got him for a reason. They didn't just get this 5th-year senior transfer tight end to come sit on the bench. Benjamin Yurcek is a very good tight end that I think has a possible NFL future. Let's go ahead, and I want to read what Mark Schlabach of ESPN, a guy who's covered Georgia for a long time too, by the way, read what he had to say about why he thinks Benjamin Yurcek will be the X factor, and then I'll dive into it a little bit deeper. This is what he said. Transfer tight end Benjamin Yurcek is the X factor. Quarterback Carson Beck loves throwing to tight ends, and the Bulldogs like to use 2 tight end sets. True. And more than most FBS teams. That won't be as easy this season with 2-time Mackey Award winner Brock Bowers playing for the Las Vegas Raiders. Poor guy. Georgia reloaded its tight end room with Stanford transfer Yurcek and highly regarded freshman Jaden Riddell and Colton Heinrich. Yes, that did happen. But we know that Pierce Sperling can't play football anymore, right? The heart problems, and he had to medically retire. So it justified going out and getting another tight end. Back to the quote. Yurcek, a graduate transfer, is an intriguing prospect. He had 108 catches for 1,342 yards with 5 touchdowns in 4 seasons, which are, timeout, not great numbers, but good when you look at him individually. Last season, he was limited to 16 catches for 239 yards with 1 touchdown, missed the final 6 games because of a shoulder injury. Stanford's shaky play at quarterback, it ranked next to last in the Pac-12 in quarterback ranking with 113.9 and passing touchdowns with 11 last year. That's not good. Also, didn't help. Oscar Delp will probably be the starting tight end, and Yurcek's pass-catching skills and ability to run should get him on the field early and often if he picks up the offense smoothly. Transfers have done a good job. I thought Dominic Lovett and Rara Thomas did a good job of picking up the offense. I thought that they were impact players last year, even if it wasn't this major statistical impact. Rara Thomas, what he ends up, 200, 300 yards. Well, with Yurcek, he he might not get a ton of yards. He might not break the 500-yard mark, but I think he's going to be a contributor. And I think that's one of the interesting things about Georgia this season. So I've got the stats breakdown for passing yards, and Carson threw for almost 4,000 yards. I expect that number to be a little bit higher this year. So there's 4,000 yards to go around. Well, here's how it broke down last year. Injured Brock Bowers, 714 yards. Dominic Lovett, 613 yards. Marcus Osby-Jacksaint, 535 yards. Lab McConkey, 478 yards. Ra Thomas, 383 yards. Dylan Bell, 355 yards. Oscar Delp, 284 yards. Dejan Edwards was the number one back in receiving with almost 200 yards. So you look at that, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's say Georgia breaks up between 8 pass catchers. Let's say it ends up playing out roughly similar. Well, Oscar Delp was probably your tight end 1, but I think that they might play a little bit more of an equal role just because both of them are vertical threats. So Delp and Yurcek, maybe we're talking about 500 yards apiece. Maybe. I think that Dominic Lovett's going to command 500 yards. I think that Trevor Etienne's probably going to get at least a couple hundred yards in the receiving through the air. I think Dylan Bell will have an increase in stats because I think he'll have an increase in usage. Ra Thomas, I think, could have an increase in stats. And then you look at the second apron. That's an NBA contract term. You look at the second layer of it. Arian Smith, Kobe Young, London Humphreys. There's a lot of capable pass catchers on this Georgia football team. What makes Benjamin Yurcek the X factor? Well, Mark Schlabach actually hit on it pretty well. Georgia loves 2 tight end sets. It brings the offense a lot of versatility. The most versatile Georgia's offense ever was in 2022. 2021, arguably, but Stetson wasn't as good in 2021, and that hurts it a little bit. Stacked-wise, yes, 2021, but in 2022, Georgia's offense grew a little bit, and you saw how good Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers could be. Now, Benjamin Yurcek and Oscar Delp are not Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. They're not as freaky as those guys. They probably don't have as high of an NFL ceiling as those guys, but they're still better than the majority of tight ends across the country. There are some really good tight ends. I think Amari Nileback could have a really good year for Texas. I think that the hype with Colston Loveland is real. You look around, and it's a position that I think's gotten better over the last few years in college football, but Georgia's got 3 of them that are really good, because I think Lawson Lucky could have just fine, like with no problem, stepped in and been the tight end 2, and now is he the tight end 2 or is he the tight end 3? The assumption is that Benjamin Yurcek is going to be taking up some playing time and going to be a big part of this Georgia offense. And they're 3 deep, they're 4 deep. Jaden Riddell, who I believe will be their tight end 4 this year, true freshman from up in Missouri, he's very good. He's what you want in a tight end. 6'4", athletic, fast, strong. They've got all of that depth, and they still went out and got Yurcek. Why? Because the dynamic pass catchers at the tight end position, having Brock Bowers, is part of why Georgia's offense was so fruitful. But I talk about 2022. We could get back to that 2022 offense a little bit more. It's just, the difference will be Carson's not going to run around as much as Stetson did, which is what helped a lot. But Trevor Etienne, better than Kenny McIntosh maybe, and good at pass catching, as Kenny McIntosh was very good at it, commanded 500 yards in 2022. The dual threat tight ends, really good receivers with Ladd and Marcus Osby-Jacksaint. If you had George Pickens in that 2022 group, then that conversation would be even different. But this is an offense that likes to spread the love. This is an offense that doesn't have, especially now with Bowers gone, doesn't have one guy that it's obvious he's your guy. He is this elite weapon. Maybe Dominic Lovett develops into that a little bit more. Maybe it's someone that we're not talking about. Maybe Dylan Bell really does turn into a Deebo Samuel type of football player, which he says he wants to do and has done a little bit. I think that's part of what makes Georgia so dangerous, is they have so many guys. It will be important for there to be a little bit of a go-to guy, because in crunch time you want an answer, right? You want a Brock Bowers type of answer, like you saw on several occasions in 2022 and 2023 where he was. Didn't have to do that as much because Georgia was blowing out teams in 2021. But Benjamin Yurcek helps them have that offensive versatility to where we're going to run the ball, we're going to pound this ball. There's 2 tight ends on the fields. Well, we're actually going to do a rollout, and Benjamin Yursik's open on a corner route. That's the difference. That's the X factor. And it's important, too, because of how important the tight end position was for Georgia over the last few years. So I like the reporting from ESPN. Thanks for watching.